Hello folks, hope you're doing well. Just been out with doggies, did another video, so I will sort that one out in a little while. Anyway, what was on my mind was about criticising churches and saying, well, that's the point, my job is not to criticise churches. I'm not criticising churches. I'm simply pointing out what is going on there. And, someone could rightfully say, well, how do you know what's going on there if you've not been to a church for a while? Well, very, very simply. If God had been able to speak to the people in charge of these churches, which he won't, because they will never listen. But if he was able to, and they had changed their way of thinking, I'm pretty sure that I would have had a conversation by now with Jeff Oakes, and with Mrs. B, and with the Oasis Church. So with the three churches I mentioned, I would have had conversations with them re-banning. They would be apologetic about the banning and saying the ban has been lifted. Problem is they don't want it lifted. The reason why those conversations haven't happened is because they are still comfortable, safe churches. As I said, look, the reality is that the church can use the excuse. Not the reason, but the excuse of COVID. They can say, yeah, but when people came to church after COVID, they were in too much of a broken mess. Too many people had seen relatives die or seen what happened to the country. So therefore, we had to go easy on them. Now, the problem is that would be rubbish because they were going easy on people and doing this exactly what they're doing now 20 odd years ago. So therefore, that wouldn't be an excuse. It would be something given as an excuse. That guarantee that they would use that as an excuse after COVID. Oh, yeah. But the reality is, I just did the video talking about the stupid world we live in. That stupid world was... the church helped to design that stupid world. The world we live in, and this is where, again, people from the church have zero understanding about consequences, really. Because the consequences of the way the church is have created or helped to create the society that we now live in. The society that we lived in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, early 60s, not latter, early, was a consequence of the church. It was a very strict society because church was very strict. They went together. Church wasn't strict because society was. Society was strict because church was. Because the strict views in society all came from church. They're not having sex before marriage. That was one of the main things. The way that women dressed. And they didn't dress in a provocative manner. They focused very heavily on any scriptures talking about the length of hair. Because all of that was about honouring. Because in that time, honouring was important. Now, honouring doesn't matter. Because there's no way, shape or form children honour their parents now. You have children being in charge of the home now. Parents can't discipline their children. So there'll be no honour in most homes now, compared to what there would have been. But that's all down to church. When church falls away, society falls away even further. And so we have the consequences of church in the society that we now have. Again, it's not the point of judging church because church itself will not be judged. How can it be? Church is full of individuals. Same as you don't judge a company. Like in America, for tax reasons, they try and say that companies are people. No, they're not. No. Same as a church is not a person. A church is a group of people gathered together. that group of people won't be judged as a group, they'll be judged individually. And my job is not to judge the people. My job is simply to talk about what's going on. Or to talk about what God wants me to talk about with regards to what's going on. And right now, we live in a very, very stupid, backward society where everything is upside down. Well, that's down to the church. Because in the church, everything is upside down. And so, Well, basically, we go back to the Pentecostal church when Manuel was there. When they were basically, God had said to me, he wants me to say something to the church. And I knew what that meant. As soon as I say something, that's it. They won't want me going to that church again. That's what happens. So if God wants you to say something, there's truth there. And there's truth that's supposed to pierce through the darkness. And so therefore, that won't be a welcome truth. Okay? So when the pastor was praying and thanking God for hospitals and doctors, and thanking God that they can deal with COVID and cancer, this is a Pentecostal church. That the only way they pray for people then was in, what's it called? The word has gone. Intercessoral prayer. So when you can't get to the person, that's the only way that they were praying for people. They weren't putting hands on people at all. At all. They never did it. Pentecostal church. Thinking intercessoral prayer is supposed to replace putting hands on people. It's demonic. Demonic stuff being prayed for in a Pentecostal church. Upside down. Because that's the point. How on earth does a Pentecostal church get to the point where they are praying that God will help the hospitals and the GPs deal with cancer and COVID? Isn't that the job of the church? The people called into the ministry of healing. See, in most Pentecostal churches now, certainly in that one, there is no ministry of healing in that church. Certainly wasn't under Manuel. There was no ministry of healing at all. As I say, you have an upside down church, you then get an upside down world. The church came first, being upside down. So to understand the world, you first of all have to understand the church. But as I say, it's not about judging, but it is about saying, look folks, you're in a situation now where you're supposed to love, you're supposed to show grace and mercy, but what you're doing is showing hate, and you're showing judgment and the desire to punish. All of that is highly demonic. It's highly the opposite of God's nature. But the problem is, the consequences of doing that is you go to eternity for hell. Is it worth it? Well, they think so. So there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.